Hello everybody and good morning. Welcome to the Top Producer Show. So our mission is to educate, equip, and train servant leaders. Our vision is to create financially independent achievers, and our purpose is to help people grow. And right now we're going over the book The Unfair Advantage by Robert Kiyosaki, and we are on chapter 5 today. So before we jump into that chapter, we are going to invite some people on here. Now this is going to be a long chapter too, so we might have to divide it up into a couple sections.
Break it up, break it up. Mm-hmm. 1,000 emails of junk.
Alrighty.
All right, David Roeder, what's happening? How are you? It's morning out in California, I believe. So we're on chapter 5, which is compensation, one of my favorite topics. The unfair advantage of compensation. It says the rich don't work for money, which is kind of an interesting way to put things. In this statement, bothered many people in 1997, and Rich Dad, Poor Dad was published. So he basically came out and said this way back then. And yet, people who work for money, who become basically money-hungry people, especially in the financial crisis, why not work for money? Because money isn't real. So he goes into kind of talking about, again, the fact that our money is printed. It is not backed by gold any longer. It was taken off the gold standard twice, FDR, and then again in 1971, Nixon, kind of semi-ironically behind the fact that Kennedy was shot. Which I've heard of some conspiracy theories, if you want to call them that. That was one of the reasons that he was assassinated is they were trying to push to get the money system off. And if you go back all the way even to Lincoln, there's a debate whether Lincoln was assassinated over the exact same thing, basically trying to create a world bank. And the fact that we didn't actually leave for religious persecution, we left because of taxes, which is, probably more likely. So, but people like to throw religion in there anytime they can't explain something or want to use something against somebody, which is fun. Great debate if you ever want to argue it. It's, something one-on-one over coffee, really good time. If you do it on Facebook, you're just an idiot. Because you can't punch people on Facebook. Well, I can. Like, if I run into you afterwards, you can still hit them. But that's why people don't debate any longer, like, in person, because, there's actually consequences, and people don't like consequences. They just like to hear themselves talk. In the old economy, so the three-legged stool, in the old economy, basically they said you need savings, you need your company retirement, and you need a retirement fund, right? Or Social Security, Social Security. The retirement fund's supposed to come from corporate. The three-legged stool was basically supported in World War II generation. But from millions of the baby boomer generations, their three-legged stool will basically have no legs. So what happens if you work for money? The more money you make, the more money you lose. And he goes on to explain, how his dad in 1950 earned $300 a month, trying to take care of a family of 6, about $3,600 a year. And then by 1968, because of education and things like that, he was now able to earn $65,000 as a superintendent of education for the state, which was a lot of money back then. 1968, that's over 6 figures comparatively to today, closing in on, 150. But he was in Hawaii, so still expensive. The problem was that even though he was making more money, his dad was still broke. Why? Because of inflation. Because money actually started losing its value. And that was even before they took what? That was before they took gold off the standard, because they were still printing money. So understand, you can still print money and lose money. It's all fake. It's all set up. It's called fractionalized banking, if you really want to get into the finite details of how it all works. Congratulations, you're a trillionaire. We all know the world's printing money. The world prints money in good economies and in bad economies. The question is how much and how fast. Trillions of dollars will not make you richer. It'll make you poorer. For instance, in Zimbabwe, you could be a trillionaire and be broke. A trillionaire, that's basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 5, 7, 10, 13 zeros behind a 1. 13, right, 13 zeros behind a 1. You could have that much money and be completely broke. Why? Because their dollar isn't worth anything. Chelsea's here. Happy anniversary, by the way. Too much money is a trap of the new economy. The money doesn't make you wealthy. So if the rich don't work for money, what do they work for? They work for assets that produce cash flow in a good economy or bad. So I'm going to tell this story, and I've told this before to people. I don't remember who remembers or not, but I met this couple that was very, very successful inside of direct sales and network marketing, and they had a bunch of kids. And their son, he taught early on basically how to make money. And his son was probably like 9 years old, maybe 10 years old, and wanted a bike, I believe is what it started out with. He wanted a bike, and his dad's like, well, I'll give you half the money. And the kid's like, okay, well, where do I get the other half the money? He goes, well, you're going to have to work for it or do something. And he's like, what do you mean? He goes, work for it. You're going to have to create an income or a business or something. He goes, you can't go get a job because you're 10, or maybe he was 9 at the time. Anyway, he was a kid. He's like, but you could start a business. And he goes, well, what kind of things do you like? And he just started talking, and they were going to a football game that day while having this conversation. And as they were passing all the food, that's where this story comes from. He's passing the food, and he's like, well, I really like hot dogs. He goes, maybe I should start a hot dog stand. He's like, okay, I'll give you half the money for the hot dog stand. And the kid's like, okay, great. Where do I get the rest of the money? He goes, well, you're going to have to basically pitch the opportunity to a bunch of people and find an investor who will give you the other half of the money. And the hot dog stand was like $400 or $500. I mean, not a lot of money. His dad could have paid for it, but he was trying to teach a lesson, not just give him the answer, which is a problem with a lot of people today. So he ends up, he ends up coming up with a friend of his dad's. And he's like, hey, I wonder if so-and-so would do this. And he's like, I don't know, you're going to have to call him. So he made his 9-year-old son, I believe he was 9 at the time, get on the phone and basically say, hey, I'm trying to earn money. I'm trying to buy a bike. But I have this neat idea. I'm going to buy a hot dog stand, and I'm going to go to all the football games. And I was wondering if, you would invest in me the $250. My dad said he'll give me half, but I have to find the other half. And the guy said, sure. And, they basically wrote up a contract, and he bought the hot dog stand. So he got the permits and everything from the school and went and started basically slinging hot dogs. Sold the hot dogs, paid off the hot dog stand, then bought his bike, then had extra money. And he's like, Dad, what do I do with the extra money? He's like, well, what else do you like? He goes, well, he liked, sodas. And he's like, well, maybe you should buy a Coke machine. He's like, okay, well, where do I put it? He's like, I don't know. So they started looking around at these different locations, and he started buying Coke machines. So fast forward this a couple years, he's in junior high. This is where it gets really good. He's in junior high. I think it was 8th grade. It was 9th grade. I'm sorry, it was in 9th grade. It was, 9th grade, his freshman year of high school. He has economics. And the economics teacher gets into this speech about theory about how it works. And his son decides to speak up and go, actually, that's not correct. And the teacher and him kind of go back and forth a little bit. And his son ends up saying this to the teacher, because the teacher's like, well, how do you know this? He goes, because I do this, it was about economics and about setting prices and marketing. He goes, I do this and I charge that and I do make that. And he's like, well, how are you so sure? He goes, because I make more money than you do. Well, that landed him in the principal's office. His dad got called, and his dad's like, I get this call that my son's in the principal's office for basically arguing with the teacher. So I go down there to find out what the argument's about, and they kind of explain everything. And the teacher, of course, is pissed. And the teacher's like, well, your son basically says that he makes more money than I do, and blah, 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 blah. And he goes, well, actually, that's true. His son, at that point, not only owned the hot dog stand, but owned 10 soda machines by that point, because all he did was reinvest the money over and over and over again. Each soda machine made between $400 and $600 a month, depending on, total usage. And he basically spent one day a month going and filling the soda machines. The soda machines themselves, I can't remember if they were like 1,000, 2,000, but they always found ways to get discounts to buy them. Use soda machines, clean them up. That was kind of one of the things he did, fix the light bulbs, because there's certain mechanics inside of them, but he fixed them up and loaded them once a month. His dad helped him fund it, initially, and then he paid it all off. So each soda machine, think about this, 10 soda machines, he was making between $4,000 and $6,000 a month. And he was a freshman in high school. So he did make more than the teacher. He goes, well, my son didn't say it the right way, but he was truthful and accurate in what he did say. So anyway, the principal kind of dismissed the whole thing and was just like, look, you need to get back to class. And, meaning the teacher, you need to get back to class. And the kid, he's like, you need to find better ways to say things. And he had the talk afterwards. He goes, okay, so this is where, you can't be the bully. Just because you do well, you have to, think about what you're saying and things like that. And his son, ended up doing really well in school and now owns many businesses. So, point being, the rich work for assets that pay them. Kind of another story, I meet this guy down in Kentucky. I'm supposed to be doing basically a home meeting would be the right way to say it in direct sales, where somebody invites everybody over to their house. I think it's one of 5 home meetings I've done my entire life inside of direct sales. Like, I've only done about 5 of them. I hate them too. I've been able to build everything I've been able to build without them. I'm not saying don't do them if you have the opportunity, but it's just not what I would do. So, Jonathan, what's going on? I go down to Kentucky. I go to this person's house, and they're like, yeah, I've got a couple friends showing up. And 2 or 3 people come in, and it was, people who worked in retail, people who worked in a gas station, things like that. There was nobody who had anything, mind-blowing career-wise. Then this truck shows up, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's kind of a cool truck. And it was an Excursion. I think it was a Ford Excursion, which is the largest. Like, you've got the Explorer, and then the Expedition, and then the Excursion is like the biggest one, right? And it has something stupid, like 32-inch wheels, so it's kind of jacked up. It's got this custom paint job on it. It had a sound system. It had a light kit, and on and on and on. And out walks this guy, and he's probably 6'4", 6'5". I mean, he's a big guy. He comes walking in, black t-shirt, jeans. He has designer tennis shoes on. I at least recognize that. But he has 2 tattoo sleeves, both arms. He's got, multiple piercings. And, he comes in and he's like, hey, yeah, I went to school with so-and-so, and they told me to come over, we're to talk business and this, that, and the other thing. I was like, okay, cool, what do you do? And he's like, oh, well, I own some businesses. I was like, okay, well, like, what do you own? He goes, well, I own some bingo halls. I was like, really, bingo halls? I said, how the hell did you get into bingo halls? That's kind of different. I've never heard that. And he goes, well, my grandparents actually owned the building, and they turned it into a bingo hall like 25 years ago before they passed away, and I bought it. And I was like, okay, so how did you get in? He goes, well, initially I just hung out there because my parents would drop me off Friday and Saturday night. So after a while, I always wanted something to eat. So I ended up starting a concession stand, which is so awesome. He starts a concession stand and starts selling popcorn and soda. And he goes, dude, you can make so much money. I said, there's a lot of money in that because I know you can make popcorn. He goes, let me tell you. He goes, I was able to get a cup. They had big cups, like the big Coca-Cola cups. So a big Coca-Cola cup had 6 cents worth of popcorn that they sold for $5. And then they had the soda, which I don't know what that cost, but it was not as good of the margin as that, because that's like a 6,000% margin. So that's what they sold. He goes, so I took that money and saved it, and then found out that there was another bingo hall, so I started running both concession stands while I was in high school. He goes, and at that point, I was already making more money than most of my friends that had graduated. So he's like, this is stupid. I should just go do this instead. So he didn't end up going to college. He went and basically negotiated and bought one of the bingo halls and then bought another bingo hall. I was like, okay, so you own 2 bingo halls. I was like, that's awesome. How many people? And I mean, it was like 200 people each Friday and Saturday. So, I mean, I was just kind of doing the numbers in my head because that's what you start learning how to do when you're in business. And I was like, holy crap, this guy, like, is man. I was like, so what else do you do? Because I just kind of knew that wasn't it. He goes, well, I was looking for a place to, because it was all cash, I was looking for a place to kind of do something else. And the one thing that I saw people do is when they ran out of money, they ran down the street to the ATM machine. I'm like, shit, this guy bought ATM machines. So then he started buying ATM machines. I said, how does the ATM machine thing work? He goes, well, the ATM machine itself isn't that expensive. You can get one for like $3,000, maybe $5,000 if super nice. He goes, but about $3,000. We just needed a basic one. He goes, the problem is you have to load it. And normally they take, in 20s, they take somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30,000 cash. He goes, so initially I bought the ATM and then went to the bank and got a loan. And I was like, how quickly did you pay that off? He's like, 6 months. 6 months. I said, what is it? I said, you make your money in fees, right? He goes, exactly. He goes, it's 2 to, you can actually set the fee on the ATM. He goes, it's $2 to $3 a transaction. He goes, so it earns somewhere between $1,500 to $3,000. He goes, mine were earning closer to $3,000. I was like, yours. I'm like, how many of them do you have? He goes, well, right now I only have 3. So I'm somewhere around 8 to 10,000 a month just with the ATMs. Then I have the other business. He owned more stuff than that. Meanwhile, everybody sitting around works retail, makes $10, $15, $16 an hour, works at, I mean, nobody had a bad job. It just, it wasn't a business. And it was probably the most business education that most of them had ever had. Just me sitting here asking these guys questions. And we ended up pitching the opportunity. And of course, he was the only one who was actually interested because he's a business person. He's like, wow, this is kind of cool. You could leverage this across the country. So my point is, wealthy people look for assets that pay them. Robert Kiyosaki talks about, of course, the asset of real estate. And he goes, there's a couple reasons why real estate is better than paper assets. He goes, number one, he goes, real estate will always be better because they're never going to give you a loan. You cannot go get a loan to go buy stock. You cannot get a loan to go buy mutual funds. You cannot get a loan to go buy cryptocurrency. You can't go get a loan from a bank to buy any of that. Why? Because they know it's so volatile. It's so volatile they won't lend you money on it. But you can kind of have okay credit, just okay credit, and you can go buy a POS house, that stands for piece of shit, that has all kinds of like minor issues. You know what I mean? It's ugly, it could be in the wrong neighborhood, it could have all kinds of problems, and the bank will loan you money on it. Why? Because it has intrinsic value, because it's actually a physical thing, and even if you mess it up, now they might want crazy interest, and they might want you to put a bunch of money down, but they will physically give you a loan. Got to prove what they want to see, you know what I mean? You have to kind of be the borrower that they want to see. There's 5 things. Actually, there's 6 things if you want to buy existing. There's 5 things if you want to buy new. And if you know what those 5 things are and know what those 6 things are, then you can put a financial plan together and go get. Probably within about 2 years, anybody starting can go get and build a brand new house. Within 2 to 3 years, you could probably have everything together to be able to purchase property. But there's another way to purchase property, which is what he calls infinite returns. I didn't even know that that's how I was doing it. I was getting infinite returns because it wasn't costing me any money to get into the house. They were actually paying me to take their house. And I kind of figured that out from some of the courses. So education is key. Fact, what makes you so sure assets are safe assets? They produce cash flow in good economies or bad economies with tax incentives. So if you own your own business, there are write-offs. What is a business that does good in a good economy or bad economy? Credit repair. Credit repair does good in a good economy or a bad economy. Healthcare. Healthcare does good in a bad economy or a good economy. Why? Because people get sick. Auto repair in a good economy or bad economy because things wear out. I mean, there's several businesses that are always good. HVAC. You know, my friends during HVAC, they're like, we didn't even know the pandemic hit. Why? Because, you know, people's air conditioners went out and their heaters went out, and, you know, this, that, and the other. There was the couple weeks where it was just kind of mild, but even then things break and don't turn on and blah, blah, and there's installations. They didn't even know it happened. There are certain things you can get into. And, you know, I learned this in 2007 and 8 when I was all vested in one area and realized, okay, what's going to be around no matter what? And decided to shift gears and went into a different industry and start another business and got that up and built. And, you know, when the economy, you know, did what it did with COVID, we didn't notice. I mean, we noticed obviously that it was happening, but like our business didn't notice it was happening. It just kept going. I also don't participate in bullshit, so that's probably another reason. I've never followed directions, by the way. They produce cash flow in good economies or bad economies with tax incentives. So explanation, through history, paper has always come and gone. There's always, Continental during the Revolutionary War, during the Confederate War, they printed different dollars that collapsed. Like, I didn't even know that. We printed a bunch of money that collapsed, and then we had to borrow money again, which is why we're still in debt to England. A lot of people don't even know that. Which is funny. We fought a war to break off from England, and then we were in debt so much we went back and borrowed money from them. That's like the height of stupidity. Fact. How do you know what's important to the economy? Look at financial statements, especially the expense columns. Who are people paying money to? Then figure it out. Explanation, when you look at a person's financial statement, if they have one, you can see what's important to them and what's important in their personal economy. Assets, education company, apartment houses, resort with golf courses, commercial buildings, oil, intellectual property. Intellectual property is like, you know, books, things like websites, you know, where it's information that's being sold. Gold, silver, and solar business is what he has. He goes, you can tell a rich person from a poor person by looking at their financial statement, because a rich person's financial statement will have assets in it, and a poor person's financial statement will have nothing but liabilities, right? That's kind of the generic, easy way. Poor people focus only on the expense column. Do I have enough money to pay for all this shit that I've decided to sign for? Really, that's kind of how it works. He said the middle class focuses on the liability column. You know, I want a car, I want a boat, I want the biggest TV possible. These are all liabilities because they all end up broken and in the trash. They don't actually make you any money. They cost you money by fix and upkeep. The rich focus on the asset column. They know if they focus on the assets first, expenses and liabilities are basically going to be handled by the cash flow coming off of the business, which always comes down to, well, what business should I get into? Well, that depends on what you like and, you know, who's going to help you. Because a lot of times it's like, who's going to be around to actually work with you? I learned this a long time ago. It's more important who you do business with than what business you do. I mean, think about that. It's more important who you do business with than what business you do. Because you could pick a business that's amazing, and if you're dumb about the business will collapse. If you have no information about the business will collapse. If you make the wrong decisions and just don't know, the business will collapse. But you could get into a business you know nothing about, but you know the person is successful, and you're like, look, I'm just going to basically figure out what you're doing and follow whatever you say to do, and I'll do it. And I've watched people have success. People who have no knowledge of that business, but it's trusting a person versus trusting an industry, which is also dangerous, right? Has a level of risk to it. But I've just found people succeed much faster that way. We do not live, and he says, we do not live below our means. Most financial advisors recommend living below your means. This is basically good advice for poor and middle class. It's not good advice for people who want to get rich. Kim and I do not live below our means. We believe in living below our means only basically creates desperation. So he believes in dreaming big and going out and getting stuff, but he has a very cool way of doing it. He's like, I buy assets, and assets allow me to buy other assets. So it's the secondary assets that actually produce lifestyle. He goes, I wanted a Porsche. So I took the money we were making from these other three things, and I went and invested in, a friend's business, and that kicked off, a couple $100,000. He goes, that's how I bought my Porsche. I was like, okay, different way. And he goes into a story about that. If you're acquiring assets for cash flow, aren't you still working for money? Yeah, technically, but there's a difference. The business is actually working for money. You're working for the business. This is the difference why the rich get richer regardless of the economy. Because watch, the whole idea is if you buy a business and you learn what to do and how to do it, and you hire people and train people and replace yourself, then you no longer have to show up to work, but still make the money. So you're kind of working for the business, and the business is working for money. Very cool way to do it. And there's different ways. You can do it without employees. You could build an online business, information that's sold, and you could put together a blog and just start placing this information on a blog that people buy. I've got a friend who started doing this. He built, over 1,000 videos. And you might think 1,000 videos, oh my God, how does he have time to do that? They were 3 to 5 minute videos, and he did them every day for 3 years. So in 3 years, he had enough information where he had 1,000 videos. They all pointed to his training. And I think in his third year, he made like 300,000, and he was retired. He's been retired since. He made 15 million last year. But now he has a whole staff of people who work with him. Law of compensation. So reciprocity. So the first law of compensation is reciprocity. Give and you shall receive. Now, if you read Think and Grow Rich, he talks about quantity of service, quality of service, and the spirit in which the service is given. Quantity. You have to give more. You have to do more than what's required. And it doesn't matter if it's at a job. He said the fastest way to get a raise is do more than what's required. Most people are trying to do less. Most people are trying every single thing they can think of. Brian, what's up? Catherine, hello. Most people are trying to do every single thing they can to get out of doing work. How can I short the system? How can I get away with something? I have a couple friends that I worked with early on, and they were, they're probably closing in on 30 now. They were like 15 years difference. And their entire goal was how they could rip people off and how they could get in for free and how they could take. And the funny thing is all of them were struggling. Why? Because they were breaking one of the major laws of getting rich, which is do more. They were trying to get more for doing nothing. I eventually threw them out of our meeting because they basically stole. Reciprocity. Give and you shall receive. I learned a long time ago. When it comes to money, many people seem to forget this law. They want to receive but not give. So you give quantity, then you give quality, meaning you do the best you can no matter what. You do the best, doesn't matter who thanked you. Doesn't matter who. Look, somebody of importance will recognize. You're trying to impress the person who's never going to be impressed. Meanwhile, there's other people who are watching, other people who are looking. Those are the doors that will open for you. Just how it works. So you've got quantity, you've got quality, and then you have the spirit, meaning you have a good attitude when you go do it. If you're like, this is stupid, I'm the only one who works here, and you're always bitching and whining and complaining, that doesn't bring success to you, unfortunately. I mean, every once in a while you can vent, right? But not all the time. Law number 2 is learn to give more. Most people go to school to learn how to earn money, but only for themselves and for their family. Few people go to school to learn how to produce more and produce more for other people. Meaning, what project, what philanthropy, what thing are you involved in that you can give back and help other people? It's an important part of compensation and an important part of making a lot of money. Law number 3 of compensation: leverage the power of compounding financial education. So compounding financial education. A, get business information, learn how to build a business. B, once you learn how to build a business, what kind of high ROI investments are you going to make? Are you going to make paper investments? Are you going to make real estate investments? Are you going to make commodity investments? Are you going to take the business knowledge and build another business? Because sometimes you want to build one business to learn how business works, learn how to create cash flow, to actually start another business that can earn way more, but you need the money. Rather than going and borrowing it, you could actually build the income. And that's kind of what I've always focused on doing. I want to help people actually build other businesses that they need the money up front to start another business. So I help them do that through direct sales. I was like, what do you want to start? Because sometimes people want to start businesses that are for the good of everybody, but they don't necessarily make a ton of money. They're giving back, homeless shelters, battered women shelters, sex trafficking shelters to help people coming out of that. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, and that's not necessarily a financially rewarding industry sometimes. It's more about doing what's right and doing better. But whatever it is, the power of education is unleashed only after you leave school. Take a class, take a seminar, read a book, begin applying your education. Now, there's a guy by the name of Darren Hardy. Darren Hardy was the best student of Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn learned from Jesus. I'm not sure. Jim Rohn was old, but he learned from a bunch of different people. Earl Nightingale, Earl Schoaf, a lot of Earls. That's kind of weird. I never thought of that. Earl Schoaf, Earl Nightingale. Earl Schoaf was, I don't know who he was a student of, but that's who Jim Rohn actually worked for 5 years before he passed away. And he basically took all of his philosophies, and that's how Jim Rohn applied and became a millionaire in his own right, and then, produced millionaires in both direct sales and in other businesses. But Jim Rohn's best student was Darren Hardy. Another student of Jim Rohn, or at least another guy who worked for Jim Rohn, was Tony Robbins. Kind of interesting how all these guys kind of click together if you know all their stories. But Darren Hardy went off, and at 18 went into real estate. By 20 he was making $100,000. By 24 he had made $1 million. Was making $1 million a year. But he was kind of a little bit of a mess. He was spending more than he was supposed to, and eventually he kind of put together a package, and now he has books and seminars. Really, really cool guy. Very, very detailed. But one of the things he teaches, he said, if you want to become an expert in anything, and that's really what Robert Kiyosaki is talking about, becoming an expert in your field. If you want to go into business, you become an expert in the field. He goes, here's how to do it. He goes, the first thing I do when I go to research something is I'll buy 5 books from the best people in the industry. 5 books from the best people. So he looks at all the top, 25 people in an industry, narrows it down to 5 books that he's going to read. Then he will buy 3 audio courses and go to 1 seminar. So, for instance, if you were going to do that in real estate, who are the top real estate people? Dean Graziano, Robert Kiyosaki obviously teaches some classes in this, Grant Cardone. There's more, but, you buy their books, you buy a couple audio courses, and then you go to one big seminar, whether it's, 10X or a boot camp or something like that. And then he said, once you do that, you'll be smarter than 80% of the population on that subject, and then you'll kind of know where to go from there. You'll at least be able to narrow it down and go, okay, this has my interest. Now I need to dive deeper into apartments, or deeper into single-family homes, or deeper into whatever you're doing, Airbnb, which obviously hasn't done well lately, but it's coming back. Also learn about compounds. The true abundance of money is found in the power of compounding financial education, talking about business education compounded with real estate education, compounded with paper assets, compounded with, so you're learning multiple ways to develop assets. And sometimes you'll come up with a niche where you can kind of put it all together. So the power of learning, he goes into different ways to learn, and there's the cone of learning. And at the very top of the kernel of learning is simulating the real experience. So that's why his game Cash Flow is you're actually simulating the experience. This is why Monopoly was really big. This is why people play card games, play chess games, because it makes you go out and actually think. Doing the real thing is the best way of learning. Doing a dynamic presentation. So anytime you have to learn something and turn around and teach it, they said if you really want to learn something, turn around and teach it. If you can turn around and teach it, then you actually probably know what's going on. Give a talk, participate in a discussion, see it done on location, watch a demonstration, look at an exhibit, watch a movie, look at pictures, hearing words, reading. So understand the last two are what school's made out of. Hearing words and reading. And looking at pictures, that's the third. So if you look at school, that's basically the top. 10% of what we need is through reading, 20% of what we need is through hearing, and 30%. So that's 60% of all learning. That's how school, because it was the easiest to duplicate. And it kept people the brokest. Infinite returns. He talks about infinite returns are the result of obeying the law of compensation, number 3. And he talks about when Kim and him started buying property. Smarter and better friends. He says the one thing that'll change everything for you is smarter and better friends. Get around a different group of people. You become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. Dan Pena says, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I've heard it many different ways. If you add up the 5 people's income that you spend the most time with, you probably make within a couple $1,000s of what they make. The power of financial education, going to a seminar, finding out something new. Don't most people attend financial courses to make money only for themselves? Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes they're just doing it for more. So that is what we got for this chapter. It says, in closing, he said, I basically wrote this book because I simply too much greed in the world and not enough giving back and things. So he basically wanted to take what he learned from Bucky Fuller and some of the people that he learned from and give back. So that's what this book is about, The Unfair Advantage. Tomorrow, we're going to go into a case. It's the conclusion, a case for capitalism, and he just kind of explains why it's better and why it works. So that's what we got.
All right. Well, if you guys haven't yet, you want to go to the Top Producer Show Facebook page, and you want to go join that page, and also go join us on YouTube. So we're going to upload each one of these videos to there, so that way you could go back and rewatch it if you would like. And with that, that is what we have for you guys today. I hope you guys are getting some good stuff out of this book. I know I did. And look forward to seeing what else is coming up. All right. We will see you guys tomorrow.